Yeah, I'm sure it'll pop right back out here in a second. So we'll see.
One each way.
Um, First of all, talk about what it's like to be, back racing in the Indy 500.
Well, it's huge for me, this being my 17th start. I remember when I first showed up at Indianapolis, I was a 19-year-old, rookie. And I go to all the team owners and showed them my resume, and I said, "Yeah, I got a track record here. I was a sports car racer, Formula V, Formula Ford." And they all said, "Well, that's great, buddy, but come back, when you're 40-something and you got a lot of experience." Because all the drivers back then were in their mid-40s. So now here I am. I'm in my mid-40s, and I have a lot of experience, and they still don't want to talk to me. So we just went and did our own program. I'm just joking, of course, but it is an interesting perspective, having been a really young race driver back then, and now being one of the older drivers. And so I've really been able to see a lot of different angles of the Indy 500. And to me, it's just a very special race. I mean, it's the single-day largest sporting event in the world every year. It's such a special place. I mean, the race requires more out of a race driver than any place I've ever raced. We're screaming along at 225-mile-an-hour lap average. We're doing this on, we're threading the needle basically at that speed. Indianapolis is a very flat track and actually very narrow. If you look at it, it looks wide, but again, at speed, it's very narrow. You're in a four-wheel drift. There's concrete on both sides of you. There's just a very small margin for error. And, I just love it. And you have all walks of life that come to the race. You have, families. You have leaders of industry, leaders of country. You still got the motorcycle group, and everybody gets along during this race. It's a very special place, and it's just an all-American event that I love being a part of.
Is there one thing that is your favorite about the Indy 500? Because you talked about all the different things that encompass.
Well, winning it. I mean, it's a race. With all this going on, there's still a very, very competitive race, I mean, the thing about an Indy car, let's say, versus a stock car, is, we're really just, it's basically they're fighter jets. I mean, your fighter jet, only you're not, you're a couple inches off the ground instead of flying, and you have concrete on both sides. But literally, I mean, like a race driver's worst enemy is a thing called brain fade, which is when just for a moment your mind wanders thinking about your wife or your family or anything, business. You really need to focus for, whether it's 2.5 to 3 hours, and you can't have any sort of loss of concentration. It's a really a huge test for the race driver, physically and mentally, for that 2.5, 3 hours. And I look forward to that test every year. That's one of the things that keeps me coming back. After winning it, it's been so hard for me to get back to victory lane. It seems like there have been many years when we woulda, coulda, shoulda, and a yellow fell wrong, or we had a pit stop that was mistimed, whatever it may be. There's always something that keeps you out of victory lane. So it's been surprising to me over the years that I haven't been able to find my way back to victory lane. And, I've got another shot, and I'm going to make the best of it.
The question that is often asked of people that win, what's that milk taste like? I mean,
Well, it's awesome.
Forever.
Who would ever think that after, like losing 3, 4, 5 pounds of body fat, totally dehydrated, there's huge forces on the body. When people say that race drivers aren't athletes, I dare them to get into IndyCar for the Indy 500. I mean, because, you literally, you have 5, 6 Gs on your body. Your heart's got to work so much harder to pump the blood through. You lose a lot of weight. I mean, you burn a ton of calories. It is an endurance race and mentally so difficult. And then to drink milk, you would think that would make you sick, but it's actually the best milk you've ever tasted, because the American Dairy Association, they make sure it's the best milk. And it tastes so good, let me tell you. So I think we went through 3 jugs of it the year I won. So, it's a very special thing that they do, and milk is good for the body. So,
how have you seen racing, I guess maybe the support of racing, change from, when you're talking about being 19 years old to now? Because it's definitely gone through some ebbs and flows for IndyCar and the Indy 500.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have seen some changes, but to be honest with you, I think right now there's a lot of enthusiasm for it, because it is new. I mean, the faces change, the drivers change, some of the teams change, but the challenge never changes. I mean, it is a very difficult racetrack. It tests equipment, it tests man and machine. There's a lot of technology in today's Indy cars, and like there always has been. There's technology that we're testing that will eventually filter its way down to the consumer market. And I love that about the sport. I mean, you know, whether it's rubber tires, you know, whether it's throttle cables, now it's all fly-by-wire, so there's nothing connecting the cable to the motor except for a computer, you know, a electrical wire. So all these systems are tested and retested and then tested again. Carbon fiber brakes, all these things that we do to try to, you know, break through barriers at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway eventually make life better and safer, better fuel mileage, better power for street vehicles. And I love that part about the sport, the fact that we are testing these things and making them better.
Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to be sure that we add?
Well, I would just like to be sure to say thank you to Advanced Auto Parts that came on as a sponsor late on Saturday, and of course the Tivoli from Colorado. Two wonderful sponsors that have been partners of mine and allowed me to get back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Thanks, guys.
All right. Fantastic.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.